You're watching ABC10 Plus Tonight.
Hello everyone, I'm Chris Thomas. You're watching ABC10 Plus Tonight. The Amador County Sheriff is working with ICE when it comes to arrests of those in the U.S. illegally. But who exactly does this impact, and what should you know about your rights? Then in dollars and cents, how the possible expiration of a 2017 tax law could hit your wallet. ABC10 Plus Tonight starts now.
The Amador County Sheriff declares he's cooperating with Immigration and Customs Enforcement moving forward.
Yeah, the sheriff says he feels it is his duty to keep the community safe, and this is one of the tools he plans to use. ABC 10's Roxanne Elias has more.
It really comes down to public safety. What is the best for the people of Amador County, which I'm elected and I'm charged with doing, is providing that public safety.
Amador County Sheriff Gary Redmond announced Tuesday he'd use a public safety first approach in addressing illegal immigrants who pose a significant risk to the community. One of the tools he plans on using is notifying Immigration and Customs Enforcement when he finds it necessary.
This really falls squarely on my shoulders. If we come in contact with somebody through investigation that we determine has committed a serious offense or violent felony, I'm the one making the decision. I'll be the one contacting ICE. I don't want to put my deputies in jeopardy.
He says the policy specifically targets people like killers and rapists. Immigration attorney Julian Sanchez Mora says the sheriff's stance is concerning depending on the approach he plans to take because of California Values Act SB 54, which ensures no state or local resources are used to assist federal immigration enforcement.
It prohibits local law enforcement agencies from cooperating with ICE or immigration enforcement with certain exceptions. Under SB 54, law enforcement agencies are not allowed to ask about immigration status.
He says they aren't allowed to make or participate in arrest based on civil immigration warrants. But there are exceptions, including people convicted of serious felonies. Sanchez Mora says if a person doesn't fall under those exceptions, then
I would say that would be going against what's established law, and the sheriff would be opening himself and the department to civil liability lawsuits.
Which Sheriff Redmond says he's prepared to confront.
I'm taking that a step further because I believe that's my duty, is to protect the people that if you're arrested of one of these offenses, and there's clear evidence you've committed this offense, and for whatever reason you're going to be released, that's when I will cooperate with ICE.
In Amador County, Roxanne Elias, ABC 10.
And the sheriff says deputies will not be doing immigration enforcement, and it should not change the work they do to keep the community safe. Well, you may have noticed the price of eggs increasing at the supermarket. It's just one of the impacts of the ongoing bird flu outbreak.
The virus has taken a heavy toll on California's agriculture industry, spreading to dairy farms across the state. Some people have gotten sick too, and one man in Louisiana died.
ABC 10's Luke Clary has been following the outbreak and has the latest.
Home to some of the country's leading veterinary science and agricultural experts, UC Davis sounding the alarm over the bird flu, and a roundtable bringing together more than 2,000 scientists, physicians, and veterinarians. The outbreak potentially threatening food security.
We've had to euthanize over 20 million birds. And if you've been to the grocery store lately, you know that there are many shelves that are empty as it relates to eggs.
Also alarming, the spread from birds to cows.
I would say that raw milk does carry risks. We do weekly testing, but with samples a week apart, it's still possible that milk with the virus can get into the food chain.
But one of the most serious concerns is the virus's ability to infect humans. With 69 cases reported in the U.S. since the start of the current outbreak, 38 of those in California. The USDA now attempting to rehire officials working on the bird flu response before being fired over the weekend. The USDA saying, in part, although several positions supporting highly pathogenic avian influenza were notified of their terminations over the weekend, we are working to swiftly rectify the situation and rescind those letters. Dr. Richard Webby is a virologist and faculty member at St. Jude Children's Research Hospital.
Today, there's not a whole lot of threat from this virus, which is why WHO, CDC, are telling us that the risk is low.
Webby says people should avoid contact with potentially infected animals and avoid drinking unpasteurized or raw milk. And while for now the danger to people remains low, it's something health experts will continue to monitor closely.
This is very much a duck virus, if you like, but it's probably only a few mutations away from being a virus that's capable of transmission between humans.
To help combat the outbreak, officials are calling on people to be vigilant and report any sightings of sick or dead birds or wildlife to the appropriate hotlines. In tonight's Dollars and Cents, big changes could be coming to your taxes. 2025 is a pivotal year for tax policy, with a 2017 tax law set to expire by the end of the year if Congress doesn't keep it in place. So what's at stake, and what can you do now to prepare?
A major federal income tax overhaul.
The Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, passed by Congress in 2017 under the first Trump administration, substantially changed federal tax deductions, rates, and credits. It's set to expire at the end of this year unless Congress steps in to extend it.
Should this expire, what are the consequences for federal taxes?
For starters, the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act reduced all of the major federal tax brackets. So if the TCJA does in fact expire, singular immediate consequences, you're going to be subject to higher percentage tax rates than what you have been over the past 8 or 9 years.
So we know since 2017, single filers and joint filing taxpayers have really enjoyed the benefits of a higher standard deduction, which thanks to the act had more than doubled.
Yeah.
Break down for us, Joseph, what viewers can expect as far as changes if Congress doesn't act and step in. What are the costs to taxpayers here?
Sometimes people itemize on their tax return rather than taking the standard deduction. So if that standard deduction does in fact drop, which it is set to drop significantly if the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act expires, it's going to mean a higher tax bill for a lot of Americans who are taking the standard deduction, just because they're not going to be able to take as large of a standard deduction as what was previously the case under the TC&JA.
Joseph Eshelman, the president of TowerPoint Wealth, also says should the act expire, there may be more opportunities for itemizations and deductions, such as charitable donations, that weren't available while the act was in place. If you use the child tax credit, which doubled under the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act from $1,000 to $2,000 per child, Eshelman says taxpayers could expect that credit to return to $1,000 should the act expire.
A lot of families who have children, they really rely on that because the cost of childcare is so expensive. This could be detrimental, like you said, to middle-class families.
Yeah, there's no question about that. And and when they double the credit, with the passage of the act in 2017, it was huge for a lot of families.
Experts say at this time it appears the likelihood of the act being extended is fairly strong. But a lot can change from now to the end of this year. We'll be monitoring it closely and keep you updated. If you file in California, also pay attention to the SALT deduction, which stands for state and local taxes. Right now, under the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, the SALT deduction is capped at $10,000, which experts say isn't much for places like California. If the act expires, the SALT deduction cap would go away, and you may benefit from a higher deduction opportunity. So talk with your financial planner or tax advisor about that. We'll have links to additional tax filing resources on our website, ABC10.com. Plus, streaming now, a Dollars and Cents special highlighting stories on how to set and meet new money goals for 2025. You can take a picture of the QR code on your screen to find ways to download our ABC10 Plus TV streaming app.
As the Trump administration continues to cut the federal workforce, there are also concerns about cuts coming to federal funding. Republican lawmakers have been eyeing cutting down programs like Medicaid, and we spoke with healthcare advocates and officials to see what possible cuts could mean for people who rely on the state for their dental assistance.
Republican lawmakers are proposing cutting billions in funding from Medicaid, a program that serves some of the most vulnerable populations. About 80 million U.S. adults and children are enrolled in the program. The $880 billion Medicaid program is financed mostly by federal taxpayers. In California, Medi-Cal, the state-run Medicaid program, receives more than half of its funding from the federal government, according to the Legislative Analyst's Office. Healthcare advocates are concerned about what a potential freeze would mean for patients like those who rely on the state for their dental care.
It would be really unfortunate for, something that I feel like they're improving. I feel like every year, every few months, they're improving their systems. And for that just to be taken away, it leaves patients in a vulnerable position.
Shelby Arevalo is the founder and CEO of the Patient Advocate Program, a nonprofit helping people in the Sacramento area connect to dental services. She says the Medi-Cal system has increased its investment in the dental field over the last few years, benefiting both patients and doctors by offering more coverage. Under federal law, states are only required to offer dental coverage for children. California is one of several states offering adult dental coverage beyond basic cleanings.
Those services like dental care can be first to go in financial squeeze.
Deb Gordon, the director of the Alliance of Health Advocates, says any disruptions or even potential disruptions can lead to people pausing their routine preventative care. It's up to the state legislature to keep the Medi-Cal system running smoothly, especially if federal funding gets cut. Senator Caroline Menjivar, the chair of the Senate Health Committee, is a big part of that effort.
We cannot lead with fear in the health space because that's going to hurt Californians. So what I'm looking at is just to hold the line, protect the progress that we've made so far, and continue to invest into healthy Californians.
Of course, ABC10 reached out to the California Department of Healthcare Services about potential Medi-Cal cuts. In a statement, the department said, quote, California will continue to work collaboratively with our federal partners to ensure that families in our state are healthy and our communities are vibrant places to live and work. While we don't typically speculate on the potential impacts of a new federal administration, we remain committed to protecting Californians' access to critical services and programs that they need. California regulators are working to find ways to address expensive utility bills, and it comes as PG&E says it made nearly $2.5 billion in profits just in 2024. Over that same time, California state regulators agreed to 6 rate changes as many in California struggle to pay their energy bills. Today, state lawmakers grilled California energy leaders and regulators about affordability. I want to go ahead and bring in ABC10's Becca Habegger. She was at a meeting today where legislators demanded answers. Becca, what else did they have to say?
Well, Alex, every year the California Public Utilities Commission gives an annual report to state lawmakers. Now, those are the folks who regulate California's investor-owned utilities, including the largest, PG&E. And during today's report, lawmakers made clear the costs Californians are bearing are unsustainable.
The reality is electricity bills have been skyrocketing.
That's Democratic Senator Josh Becker at a California Senate committee hearing Wednesday, where lawmakers discussed the affordability of energy bills.
Since 2021, electricity bills for all 3 of the state's investor-owned utilities have outpaced the rate of inflation.
Senators grilled the California Public Utilities Commission, CPUC.
I have residents in my district being charged $700 a month plus per month on their utility bills.
Democratic Senator Aisha Wahab is addressing CPUC President Alice Reynolds, who explained why the CPUC granted PG&E 6 rate changes last year, attributing much of that to wildfire costs.
So we're approving work for the utility, the work that the utility is requesting to do. It is paid for by ratepayers.
Okay, but what is PG&E's pay into this, or any of the other companies, when you're saying you're analyzing what they're paying into versus what a ratepayer is? Ratepayers are not a bank. I'm just going to be very clear about that.
I didn't mean to suggest that I thought ratepayers should pay for climate change impacts. What I meant was under the current system they do. But I agree with you. We need to look at how it's impacting ordinary people every day. A third of the customers in the IOU territories are on subsidized rates.
Frustration over high energy costs is felt on both sides of the aisle. We spoke with Republican Senator Suzette Valadares.
California is too expensive to live in, and we have too many families that are struggling, too many families that are leaving our state. It's unacceptable to me that in the state of California, we're pushing forward anything that doesn't make life easier and less expensive for our communities.
PG&E's Executive Vice President of Corporate Affairs and Chief Sustainability Officer Carla Peterman also spoke at this hearing.
We made $2.47 billion in earnings last year. Only $86 million actually went back to investors. The dividend was less than 3.5%. The remainder of that we reinvested back in the business to do work on behalf of customers.
She says PG&E is taking steps to stabilize costs and points out the average residential energy bill is lower now than it was this time last year.
All right, bringing in Becca Haubecker now, who has been following this for us. Becca, I do want to talk about solutions. What are some of the things that are being proposed?
Yeah, in a report published last night, the CPUC offered some suggestions. Let's focus on those costs associated with wildfires, for example. They say undergrounding wires in certain locations is the most cost-effective way to prevent equipment from sparking wildfires. And once the wire is underground, that saves money on maintenance, like tree trimming around those wires. However, the CPUC points out undergrounding wires is still very expensive. And as you heard the president say, right now, those are expenses borne by ratepayers. So the CPUC recommends the legislature and PG&E look for other sources of funding. The source of the funding is beyond the CPUC's purview. But I do want to mention that Senator Aisha Wahab, she's proposed a bill, for example, that would cap the amount of rate increases PG&E could get from the CPUC to one per year.
Let's talk weather now and a live look at I-80 at Donner Lake. Look at that. Snow has been falling for most of the day. It's still coming down, making for some dangerous conditions on the road. So let's bring in Monica now for a closer look at what to expect tonight.
After seeing that scene, I'm thinking tale of two regions here.
I know, and that car was going really fast. Right when you were saying dangerous conditions, it just came zooming by. So it was one of those systems that's on the weaker side, but it's got to slow down, right? Wow. All right, here's a look at where things stand. Satellite and radar depicting some of the last bit of moisture moving through. A few spotty showers through the capital region, and then in that 80-50 corridor, still some slick spots along 80, 50, 88, 89, as well as north of I-80, right through the northern Sierra. We're still seeing some spotty snow showers. It hasn't been a ton of accumulation, but it is still snowing, so some slick spots up there for the high country. After we get through this, it's all about the building high pressure ridge, despite the fact we still see a very active Pacific. Highs for today, upper 50s to right around the lower 60s, and that's because of the cloud cover, the showers that came through. 50s for the foothills and 40s for the Sierra. We still saw our snow level, though, at the passes, and that has meant for some good news because we need to keep that snow at higher elevations, or lower elevations, I should say, to keep that snowpack intact. We don't want that spring melt yet. Big Mountain Backyard right now, variable cloud cover for Sacramento, Stockton, and Modesto. Upper 50s and low 60s currently. Marysville with rain at 57 degrees, and it is snowing at South Lake Tahoe at 34, so it's a pretty warm snow, but nonetheless, still seeing a pretty good snow elevation there at about 6,500 to 6,700 feet. Tomorrow we clear out, but we are going to see those winds kick up. Our sunrise 650. We head to highs in the low to mid 60s tomorrow afternoon. Through the afternoon, we should see a little bit warmer than average temperatures tomorrow. Tomorrow's a pretty good taste of what we're usually expecting this time of year. Sunset 5:50, and that means 9 hours straight up of daylight. Spring is just around the corner. Our future wind gusts for tomorrow picking up to about 20 to 25 miles per hour, and it does set the stage for drying and warming conditions. Less in the way of fog and more in the way of some heat heading our way by the weekend. That means more bugs and pollen heading our way. A little bit of patchy fog overnight, not a problem for the morning commute. Now, there's a little bit of a wind event developing overnight Thursday through Friday with an offshore event potentially through Southern California. The key factor here, it does not look like a long duration event as that high pressure ridge starts to build in and we all start talking about the warm up on the way. Highs are warming into the lower 70s by the time we get to the end of the weekend. As you can see, our average high is 64. We're going to be roughly about 10 degrees above that. Highs in the 40s tomorrow for the Sierra with 60s down the hill with clearing skies. We'll see 60s to near 70 along the coast, so a bigger warm up earlier. 60s throughout the valley after morning lows in the 40s, and we dry things out, warm things up for the upcoming weekend. We're almost to the end of February here, and we're going to see a much warmer forecast as we wrap up this 10-day forecast heading into the beginning of March. It is going to be a much warmer outlook with a lot of 70s on there, guys.
Yeah, that forecast looking like a spring teaser. Is it going to stay that way?
I was going to say, looks like spring is already trying to make an entrance, huh, Monica?
The grass is starting to green up, those flowers trying to bud, yeah.
Monica, thank you.
As we celebrate Black History Month, we're highlighting African American voices shaping our communities. And for generations, Napa Valley has been synonymous with fine wine. But for many, breaking into the wine industry just really hasn't been that easy. So tonight, we take you to Brown Estate, which is Napa's first Black-owned winery. Here's John Bartel with their story.
So to really have an estate winery, it usually historically takes 3 generations. The first generation will acquire the land and homestead it. The second generation will plant grapes, and the third will start a winery. But Mom and Dad did the first 2 steps for us.
When Coral Brown's parents first purchased an abandoned 500-acre farm in 1980, they didn't know their children would grow up to become Napa's first Black-owned winery.
And they bought this property as a place, sort of an escape from the city, where we could work together as a family and bond together.
Originally, their dad was from Jamaica and their mom was from Panama. Both, though, worked at the family practice they purchased in Los Angeles. So when they bought the Napa Valley farm, their 3 kids, Coral, Deneen, and David, were a little puzzled when they learned their parents were going to be growing grapes.
Mom and Dad, in fact, they weren't wine drinkers at all. They were in the medical field.
Homesteading the farm was tough for the Brown family. They first had to fix up the dilapidated farmhouse and barn, and then learn how to plant a crop of Zinfandel vines. David Brown says his parents got a lot of help from the community in Napa Valley.
When we first moved here, there was just one telephone line, so it's like a party line with the neighbors, so you got to know everybody, and everybody, if you needed something or your tractor broke down or whatever, everybody was helping. We were all kind of in the same boat.
David says his parents made friends with winemakers throughout the Napa Valley, and as the farm grew, he started to learn the ins and outs of winemaking.
Growing up, I didn't know that this was an option.
In the beginning, the Brown family focused solely on growing and distributing grapes, but in 1995 and 96, all 3 of the Brown children made the decision to start their own winery.
It was not really what they wanted us to do. They wanted us to become doctors. And when we said, you know what, we want to take it to the bottle, they said, well, I guess we need to keep up with the times.
With David taking over the winemaking process, the rest of the family turned the dilapidated farmhouse and barn into a winery and a place of business, which included constructing a wine cave to store all the product.
Yeah, it took about 9 months of blasting to get this entire cave.
Brown Estate became their flagship label, followed by their second label, House of Brown, each wine telling the family story and the Napa Valley community that welcomed them.
My dad would always say, it's such a fraternal place. Everybody helps everyone else. And it's part of the Napa Valley culture.
The Browns do recognize that people of color face barriers starting farms and owning wineries, but they're living proof that with family and the right community to back you up, anything's possible.
And there are plenty other Black farmers now, small wineries here and there, and it's very inspiring to us to see that maybe we opened the door.
For Black History Month in Napa Valley, I'm John Bartel.
And you can always watch all of our Black History Month stories on the ABC10 Plus TV streaming app. You can find them under the Race and Culture playlist, under the News tab, or by scanning that QR code that's on your screen right now.
Thanks for watching ABC10 Plus Tonight. We are here 24/7 on the free ABC10 Plus TV streaming app. You can get your local news and weather anytime, anywhere you stream. I'm Chris Thomas. We'll see you next time.
Trust isn't given, but earned. It's built every day by doing the hard work, putting in the hours, doing the research, holding the powerful accountable, and being there when you need us most. Working hard to earn your trust every day, every newscast, every story. Watch weeknights at 6 or stream live on ABC10 Plus.
Thanks for watching ABC10 Plus. And now that you're here, why don't we take a look around and see what else is here?
The very first tile on your left is always going to be streaming 24/7. You can find us adjacent to that, breaking news if it's there. And then right next to that, a replay of the most recent newscast. Whether it's ABC 10 Morning News at 5, 6, or beyond, it's going to be there. The forecast beyond that, and then right beyond that, the news that matters the most. Now that you know the basic tiles, let's go up to the top and take a deeper dive into news. We have every single newscast that you would need, including To the Point with Alex Bell, taking a deeper dive into the issues. Beyond that, ABC 10 Morning News at 5 and 6 and 11, the evening shows as well. Below that, you can watch the top stories from To the Point. Under that, Dollars and Cents, where you can learn how to navigate this challenging economy. And below that, you can watch our award-winning ABC 10 Special Investigations, where we hold the powerful accountable. Going into weather, look, it's the 10-day forecast, getting you ready for the weekend and beyond. Beyond that, sports. I know you care about the Sacramento Kings. We have the most comprehensive guide to anything, everything Kings in the locker room and on the court. We have it. Below that, I know you care about the San Francisco 49ers. We can't mention base sports without talking about the Oakland A's. We have that too. Backing out again, come up to the top and join me on Verify. I'm super excited about this. Our experts are checking the facts, verifying the truth for you. Jump up now to shows. Very excited about this. Oh, look. It's Take a Look. This is my show. I love movies, and if you love movies or streaming shows, whether it's on screens this big, or this big, it's Take a Look. Recently went behind the scenes, sat down with Lady Gaga and Joaquin Phoenix to talk about Joker 2. I love the movie, and oh, I just heard you shout you hate the movie. Jump in, we talk about it on this show. Other shows, Bartell's Backroads, go up and down the state of California, tank of gas getaways, one fuel cell getaway, like places like the Toy Museum. This is what kids did before they had screens. Over here, the Moaning Caverns of Calaveras County, one of the most coveted caves in all of California. You know, watching this show, I discovered there's a cave that could fit the entire Statue of Liberty in your own backyard. You'll find about that and more with Bartell's Backroads. Down below that, To the Point. It is one of my favorite newscasts because they talk about news with Alex Bell the way you talk about news. It's conversational, but in-depth at the same time. Below that, Your California Life. Love this show. Whether it's entertainment, food, beverage, lifestyle, it's there. Desiree Shepherd hosts and does an amazing job. So there you have it. It's ABC 10 Plus, the app. What do you need? We heard you and we got it. Thanks for watching. Thanks for streaming.